What's going on, everybody? Ziggy here. I hope you're having a fantastic whatever time of the day or night that it is for you. I'm currently on a road trip, actually, heading back home. Going to be working on something that I'm incredibly excited to announce here pretty soon, related to music, related to my band. However, it's on my mind, right? Like, I don't know. I wanted to just make a little video here. I want the channel to be of multiple different topics, different interests. So I figure it to be, I figure it to be interesting for me to throw out this this video here of me just kind of talking about the NBA actually right now, which is a completely different swing from the Pokemon content I've been doing recently. But like I say, I want, some good variety in the channel. So let's dig into it. I mean, let's talk about the season, right? Like, the season has definitely been interesting. The most interesting thing to me, for sure, and I would assume to a lot of people, I mean, we'll begin with this topic. The Suns have been absolutely dominant, and I find it very interesting. I mean, Chris Paul has got to be fiending for a ring. I mean, he's been, who knows, been in the league for definitely well over 15 years or something at this point, 10 to 15 years, something like that. He's been in the league a long time, something similar to LeBron, and has never reached a ring. I think the closest he came to was with, like, the Clippers or the Rockets. I want to say the Clippers. I'm unsure. Before he joined the Suns, that is, of course. Last year it was him and the Suns versus the Bucks. Bucks got it 4-2. I think this year is an incredible opportunity for Chris Paul to take a ring. If we take a look at some of the records here, they have by far the best record in the NBA right now. And we're looking at the records as we're approaching the championship, or rather approaching the playoffs. Suns are sitting at an incredibly comfortable 57-14. I did a little bit of research as well. I mean, Chris Paul doesn't play every game. Devin Booker doesn't play every game. Seems like Ayton might actually just be their most active player as far as just most play time and being incredibly good. But yeah, I mean, just 57-14. You take a look at some of the other teams that are close in record. Really, I mean, there's quite a few all hovering around the same spot. You got the Grizzlies at 48-23, which that's another topic. Warriors at 47-23. Jazz are climbing behind at 44-26. The Mavs got it at 43-28. Nuggets at 42-29. Timberwolves at 42-30. And that's actually interesting. That's another topic. I mean, how close the NBA actually really is. I mean, it's actually another reason I wanted to make this conversation. It's just the NBA seems very well and balanced, and the Suns are just looking primed and ready to grab their ring for this year. Of course, Devin Booker, I'm sure, is craving a ring. I mean, that man's been in the league a good amount of years at this point. He's certainly no kid anymore in the league. So, but then, you take a look at the Eastern Conference. You got teams like the Heat at the number one seed at 47-24. The 76ers 43-26. The current champions, the Bucks at 44-27. Celtics actually coming up pretty heavy here at the fourth seed at 43-28. Bulls at 41-29. The Cavaliers at 41-30. The Raptors actually kind of climbing up a little bit at 39-31. I'll mention them too at the 8th seed. The Nets at 37-34. Kind of a tragic story there. That's another topic. But it's just incredibly interesting how healthy and balanced the league really is right now. I mean, you got the Suns above all, making their presence known, making this dominating presence known. And I suppose we can move on to the Grizzlies. I mean, let's be real, this is just Ja Morant. I mean, of course, you got players like Jaren Jackson Jr. There's, what's his name? I think Dylan Brooks is still on this team, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you definitely have some really great role players, but this team, without Ja Morant, they would not be a team. And how heavy Ja has been carrying them, it's just phenomenal to witness, really. I mean, he's about my age, if I'm not mistaken. He's about 20, 21, 22, somewhere around there. And he's 6 foot tall, which is relatively small for the NBA, and just high flying dunking machine. I mean, incredible athleticism, ultra high IQ, very good balance whenever he's going to take any type of shots, especially trick shots. Just very, very well-rounded point guard, very well-rounded player. And I personally believe that he is pretty much the main reason the Grizzlies are doing so well. I mean, they're the second seed in the West. The Suns and the Grizzlies at the first and second seed of the league, by the way. Very interesting. If you were to say that, 5 years in the past, people would be like, what are you talking about? Warriors are cool. I mean, I'm actually kind of happy to see them back at the top. They were very dominant for a long time, which was very tiresome for a lot of people to see. But Klay Thompson coming back from his very serious injury is honestly a breath of fresh air. It's really just the Splash Bros operating that team, and of course Andrew Wiggins got a few really good pieces. My sleeper team this year actually is the Jazz. I mean, I do want the Suns to win, but I mean the Jazz have just constantly these past few years been in contention. They've been a very good team. And that core of Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and of course they've got Bogdanovich as an incredible thing, and Joe Ingles, I forgot how to say his name. Just very interesting. I mean, you got Luka and the Mavs. Mavs trading off Porzingis earlier this year was actually pretty cool to see. Getting like Spencer Dinwiddie back, and I think a few other really key role players. Just interesting. Now I'm losing some faith in the Nuggets. It's just a very interesting situation in the NBA. Last team I want to talk about on the Western side, other than there's not really much to talk about the Lakers. I think everybody talks about them. We know their unfortunate failures thus far, 30 and 41. Russell Westbrook is just not working out. I don't want to say I told them so. No, I'm playing. No, earlier in the year when I saw them make that trade, they traded off Kuzma and what was it? KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and someone else. They traded off some very important role players to get Russell Westbrook, who was not even ever bound to make this team mesh well. LeBron and Russell Westbrook have very similar play styles in that they do need the ball in their hands to operate properly. And as soon as I saw that trade at the beginning of before the season had started, I believe is when it was, or in the beginning of the season, whenever it was. As soon as I saw that trade, I was like, the Lakers are gonna go downhill. I never saw Russell and LeBron working well together, and it's shown. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Lakers are looking to trade him off in the off season. Very peculiar spot for the Lakers. I don't even think I could say that it's sad to see. I mean, you've had, LeBron injured here and there. You've had AD injured here and there. So that always sucks. Having your superstars injured is never fun. But this team was not bound for success. I don't even know if LeBron was to stay in the Lakers. I know that he's going to end out his career on whatever team that Bronny joins. So that's definitely interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to see what team Russell Westbrook will go to. He's just been declining in stock for a while. I'd say just him getting older and him maintaining that same, I've got to be the superstar mentality and play style. I'm unsure exactly what's going to happen to him, and I'm actually unsure if the Lakers are going to receive proper value for him in return. So I don't know. Lakers are in a little bit of a scary situation, I'd say. Now, the Timberwolves are super interesting. I mean, you got Karl Anthony Towns, you've got D'Angelo Russell, and Anthony Edwards. Very interesting trio. I mean, I think the best word to describe that trio is explosive. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns just the other night went for like 60 points, 60 points and 17 rebounds or something crazy like that, draining all sorts of threes. And whenever you've got your big man draining threes like that, in addition to a playmaker like D'Angelo Russell and the athleticism of Anthony Edwards, and of course you can't even discount the shot making, the shot creation of D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards. I mean, they're a really cool team. I was talking about a sleeper team. I mean, really, a realistic sleeper team is the Timberwolves. I mean, we all know that the Jazz are pretty solid. They're solid contenders. I think the Timberwolves are interesting. I think they're definitely a sleeper team. I mean, looking at that massive gap between 7th, 8th, and 9th seed, you got the Timberwolves at 42 and 30, the Clippers at 36 and 37, and the Lakers at 30 and 41. I think the Timberwolves are very easily going to maintain their playoff spot. I think this will be interesting. The playoffs are going to be ultra entertaining this year. I definitely look to tune in, and I'm 110% backing the Suns. And honestly, it's not even that I'm backing the Suns, it's that I'm backing Chris Paul. I'll let that be known. Chris Paul deserves a ring before he exits this league. Looks like we're not going to have a whole lot of time left on my storage, so I'll look over at the East a little bit. Now, the East is just a super interesting story in my eyes. I mean, for long time, the West has obviously been better than the East. And now we're in this interesting situation where a lot of the Eastern teams are actually competing pretty heavy, because we were talking about that drop-off from the 7th to the 9th seed in the Western Conference. There's not quite the drop-off in the Eastern Conference. It's actually quite the curve. it starts to drop off whenever you get down to the 11th seed. So it's actually interesting. I want to go ahead and call that the Eastern playoffs are already set. I actually personally don't believe that 11 to 15 are going to make the playoffs this year. But, you got the Hawks at the bottom there at straight 500 at 35-35. The Hornets at 36-35, which I don't know if they actually beat. Here, actually, I can check if they've beaten. Well, perhaps not. I did see earlier today that they're playing the Mavs, and they are beating them 16-2 in the first quarter. So, crazy. My favorite team in the East is the Bulls. I'm not really sure what's been happening recently with them. It looks like, not necessarily that they fell off, but they were maintaining at least a top 3 spot for a while now. And then that 5th seed, the Celtics coming up is very interesting. I'm sure Jason Tatum is performing like a monster. But the Bulls having such an interesting core, with like DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Alex Caruso being an important role player for that team, Nikola Vucevic, of course, just being his offensive beast that he is. I know I'm missing a player, but just an incredible team overall. I really want to see the Bulls succeed well in the Eastern Conference this year. The Heat are always interesting. Them picking up Kyle Lowry was a massive upgrade for them. Now there's still plenty I could talk about here. There's the Ben Simmons story. Obviously, that's absurd. I would love to actually talk about that. I want to talk about the Nets and how I felt about them in the beginning of the year. And then of course seeing how they are now. Ben Simmons is just another topic. I think I will save him for another video of us chatting about the NBA. Just a wildly interesting season so far. This has been one of the most entertaining seasons I have personally witnessed in the NBA probably ever. It's like I was talking about that story earlier of the Eastern Conference constantly being lower than the Western, and technically you could argue that the Western's still better than the East, but in my eyes they're actually balanced. It's interesting because with the West you've got your top 7 teams that are for sure really great teams, and then it drops off relatively heavy, and then it drops off with the Clippers because Kawhi's still injured. Yeah, just crazy. It drops off so heavy in the Western, and then with the Eastern, all the records are this nice curve. So, I don't know, just an interesting topic. I very much enjoy the NBA, so I kind of thought I'd throw some of my thoughts out there. I will go ahead and talk about this in a future video, so thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your time, and see y'all.